What's up, guys? Welcome to the new episode of the Myles High Podcast. This is Myles Munroe Jr., your host. And as always, the vision and goal of this podcast is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist. Always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right. Hope everyone's doing good out there. I'm doing good. The team is doing good. The wife is here. Wife's doing good. Baby good.
Doing good.
Wow. It's very firm of you. Nah, but we doing well, man. I have a good topic that I'm discussing today. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. It is something that I have been able to deal with and learn and become good at as I've grown and developed, especially in my professional life. And the topic that I want to discuss today is the freedom of no. The freedom of no. You know, some, if not all, of the hardships that we face in life come from doing things that we do not really want to do. And a lot of the times we do these things because, you know, we want to fit in, because we want to be liked by people, because we want to please everyone. We want to avoid conflict, or we may feel some sense of obligation to do, right? But I want to let you know that it is okay to say no. All right? It's okay to say no. Nothing is wrong with thinking about yourself first. And it took me a while to really get to this point in my life, right? And especially after the period of my parents passing. And like, I just remember I was inundated with like requests to like do these different things and go these different places. And, you know, of that list I just gave of like the reasons why we do things that we don't want to do, a lot of it had to do with me feeling a sense of obligation, right? My parents had passed. These individuals, in some way, I guess, wanted to pay homage to my parents and, you know, requested me to either come and speak somewhere or just me to, you know, present myself to either receive something they wanted to give or, you know, just to represent my parents in their absence. But that was a difficult time for me. In 2015, I did a lot of things that I wouldn't have normally done. I did a lot of things that I kind of regret doing, but 2015 is a blur. I don't remember much of that year. But I do remember that I was pulled in a lot of different ways that just kind of, you know, wasn't good for me mentally. You know, just because as I went through these things, I started to realize that, you know, people weren't asking me to come to these different places and to do these different things because of me. They were asking because of my parents, right? Because of my dad in particular. So, you know, people would ask me to speak at this particular place, and I'm not I don't consider myself to be a traditional pastor, right? I'm not even in the slightest sense, and I'm not necessarily comfortable even speaking in public on a stage or whatnot. I do it. I've grown to love it, you know, but, you know, back then in 2015, it wasn't something that, you know, I was accustomed to or felt comfortable doing. But I did it anyway. And I, you know, in some ways it helped me to develop and become the person that I am today. But it was for all the wrong reasons, right? And I think I started to realize that these people weren't asking me or requesting me to do these things because of me. They were requesting it because of some nostalgia that they were experiencing, right? They wanted to somehow get a piece of my dad or be able to connect with my dad. And obviously the way or the easiest way for them to do that would be to connect with myself or my sister or someone else in the family, right? But, you know, I guess I understood the fact that, you know, I had my dad's name. I was his son. You know, there was a strong connection along those lines. And I just remember 2015 just drained me completely. And And I started to realize, like, man, it's okay for me to say no. It's okay for me to focus on myself, right? And some reasons why it's okay for us to focus on ourselves is, because we don't owe anyone anything, right? And I really had to come to that realization. Like, I don't owe these individuals anything. I'm not obligated to do anything, or I shouldn't feel that you're entitled for my time or for me to do anything just because, like, you're friends with my parents or you're friends with the family or you're a family member or whatever the case is. Like, I don't owe anyone anything, right? Another reason is because I can't concern myself with the opinions of others. A lot of the times we make decisions based on what we think someone else's opinion is going to be of the decisions that we make. That's the wrongest reason to make a decision. I can't change someone else's opinion of me, and my focus shouldn't be on someone else's opinion of myself, right? I should focus on controlling what I can control. And, at the end of the day, who cares what their opinion is? I'm happy in myself and with the decisions that I make. So I really could care less we should care less how someone else thinks of us, because we can't control their opinions, right? They're going to have an opinion either which way, right? And a lot of the times, if we don't make the decision that they want us to make, they're going to have an opinion of us. But that shouldn't affect the decisions that we make, right? The next thing is time cannot be reimbursed. Time is the most common commodity on earth today in the worlds that we live in. And we shouldn't waste our time doing things that we don't want to do because we feel a sense of obligation to do it, or we feel a sense of entitlement or a sense of need to please someone else just because we want to appease them as opposed to appeasing ourselves. And then, lastly, life goes on. That's something that I came to the hard realization early 2016, right? So 2015, had all these people around the family requesting us to do all these different things. And 2016 hit and everyone was gone, right? I was just like left to figure it out by myself. And, I don't mean that in a bad way. Don't get me wrong, right? I understand how it goes. Like, you lose someone, everyone cares, everyone is, empathetic, and they sympathize towards what we as a family are going through. But there comes a time where life goes on, right? Their life move on, and they go on to do the things that they want to do with themselves, with their families, with their friends. And that means that they're not, constantly in our presence anymore. And, the good thing about it is, like, I had a lot of conversations about this with my dad, and I had a lot of life experiences with this as well, because, obviously we experience death, or we see death around us, right? In our friends and our families. And like we see these trends that happen when people die. So I wasn't surprised when it happened, right? It was almost like expected. And for me, it was just kind of a reminder that, man, life goes on. Like, regardless of what happens, life goes on. So we need to ensure that we're making the decisions that we want to make, not focused on anyone else, not focused on the opinions of anyone else, but focused on us and really focusing on the reasons why we make these decisions. So at that point in my life, I started to kind of come up with certain guidelines that would help me to make decisions, whether yes or no, right? Whatever the decision was, I kind of had this checklist of questions that I ask myself and that I go down to ensure that when I say yes or when I say no, it's really what I want to do and has nothing to do with anybody else. And I wanted to share this checklist with you guys, right? So the first thing on the list is, what is being asked of you? Ask yourself, what is being asked of you? Is it something that they want you to do that you're good at, and they want to pull you in order to impact and influence them because this is something that you're an expert at or something that you have success in? Or is it that they're looking for, some nostalgic feeling or something that could benefit themselves, as opposed to benefiting anybody else? A lot of the times in 2015, like I said, like when I was asked to come to these different places and do these different things, it had really nothing to do with me. It had nothing to do with what I brought to the table, or even who I was as an individual. It had a lot to do with, who my parents were. And I think that has helped me to be able to say no and to be comfortable saying no, right? It was just difficult for me because, I had individuals that were close friends of the family. I might have felt a sense of obligation just because of, that close relations to be like, okay, yes, I'll do this. And, to a certain extent, even worrying about the opinions of others, right? It's like, if I say no to this, man, how would they think of me, right? Like, what would they think of, like, our family, or how would this affect other things that we have going on? So, like, a lot of that came into play when I was making my decisions back then. But I, like I say, I started to ask myself, what is being asked of me? And I think that helped me out a lot. The second thing is, I took my emotions out of it. I think that's probably one of the best things you can do when making any decision, to be quite honest, right? It's never good to make emotional decisions. So as long as I took my emotions out of it, I was able to make rational and logical decisions, like really thinking about like exactly what is being asked of me, and not thinking of, man, I don't like this person, or I love this person, I really want to do this with this person. Like, I took emotions completely out of it and just looked at it from a rational and logical standpoint. Now, I must point out here that a lot of the conversations, a lot of the requests that we have, they're going to come from our family members, our loved ones, and maybe a little emotions are going to be involved, right? And, those are going to be those decisions that you're just going to have to balance, right? And be able to make the right one that's for you personally. But for the most part, the best that you can, just take emotions out of it. And I think you find yourself making the more rational, the more logical decision that's going to sit well with you for a longer period of time, right? And, speaking of time, the next thing that I thought of was, how will I feel about this 72 hours from now? How will I feel about this decision that I'm making 72 hours from now? For me, even now, right? Sometimes I make decisions mainly from like longtime friends of the family, or people that I've known and have built a relationship for a while. And they would ask me to do something and I would say yes. And then I would go off and think about it, and for a day or two, and talk to my wife about it, and I'd be like, yo, I don't feel like doing this. Like, this is not something that I think I want to do. And, her being the person that she is, she's like, so why are you doing it?
Absolutely.
Like, why? Like, don't do it if it's not something that you want to do. And it took me a while to get to the point where I could do that. So now what I do is I tell the person, all right, give me 72 hours to make a decision, and I think me having that time to process what is being asked of me and really think about if this is something that is going to not only benefit the persons or the people that I'm going to be impacting, but is it going to benefit me? Like, what's in it for me? What am I going to get out of this, right? And I'm not talking about something tangible, right? I'm talking about, like, is this going to build me as an individual, or build my spirit, man, or impact me just as much as I'm hoping to impact the people that I'm going to be affecting when I'm going. Like, that's a real important thing. So I give myself 72 hours. How will I feel about this decision? Whether yes or no, how am I going to feel about this decision in 72 hours? And sometimes I make a decision, I would say yes sometimes, and I have, time to think about it, be it 24, 48 or 72 hours. And I'd be like, man, that wasn't the right decision. And now, I have the confidence now to go back and be like, I apologize. I know I said yes, or I know I said no, but I want to change my mind. This just something came up, and it really conflicts with the answer that I initially gave you, and I need to change that answer. So me really allowing allowing myself those hours, that time to like really think about what it is that I'm doing or that I want to do, and what is being asked of me, and how I'm able to benefit from that from a personal perspective and from a professional perspective. Giving myself that time has done a lot for me. And then the fourth thing is to trust your gut. You know, I think a lot of the decisions that we're faced with, like for the most part, we already know the answer that we should make, right? It's when we start thinking about like someone else's opinion or the obligation we feel we have towards someone else, or the fact that this person is, you know, a family member, a loved one, a friend, or someone that I've known for a long period of time. Like that's when we start, you know, interfering with what our gut is telling us. You know, sometimes our gut automatically says, yes, this is a great decision, go do this. And sometimes it says, no, this isn't something that works for you. And, you know, I think, you know, going with your initial gut feeling, I'd say 95% of the time is always the decision to go with. You know, I've become a professional at that. I always go with my gut. I always go with what the spirit is telling me, right? If I'm at peace with the decision, be it yes or no, that's the decision I'm making, regardless of how the person feels about that decision. And I'm super confident in that now. And then the last thing is to just be polite. Be polite, and especially if the answer is no, right? Be polite in what you're saying and how you say it. You know, I think this is something that I've learned over the years, especially having conversations with Sharice. And she has taught me that sometimes tone is everything, right? How you say it. It's not really what you say, but how you say it. So I've been really, really working on being polite and saying things in a way that it could be absorbed and accepted in a more appeasing way to the person that it's being said to. So be polite. You know, don't be rude about it. Don't be snappy about it. You know, if you're gonna be telling people no, just let them down easy and say, you know what, I would love to do it, you know, but at this time, I don't think this is the right thing for me to do. Maybe at some point in the future, we could come back and relook at this, and maybe it'd be a different decision. But for now, it's a no. But be polite in doing it. You know, because there is power in no. There is power in no, ladies and gentlemen. No is such a freeing thing, right? And you know, it's just the freedom of no, the freedom that we experience in being able to say no and being comfortable saying no and being happy saying no. There's nothing like it. And I guarantee you the quickest you're able to get to the point where no is easier for you to say, the easier your life is going to be. Hands down. Like there's going to be no, you're not going to feel burdened to do things that you don't want to do, or stressed because you're doing something that you don't want to do, or even burdened to keep people around that you don't necessarily want around, right? Like you have to say no to events. You have to say no to invitations. You have to say no to friendships. You have to say no to relationships. You have to say no to business opportunities, business ventures. Like you shouldn't feel an obligation or feel an entitlement or feel anything towards doing things that you just don't want to do. And especially if it doesn't sit well with you in your spirit, mind, in your gut, like that gut feeling, like whatever it is, however you want to describe it, no is powerful. And the freedom in saying no is what I hope we all get to at some point in life, because there's nothing like it. There's this confidence that we are able to build in ourselves when we're able to say no, and not say it because we don't like this person or don't like that person, but really say it because no is the answer that we really want to give, and be comfortable and confident in saying that. All right. So that's what I wanted to talk about, the freedom of no. I think the takeaway that I want you guys to leave with is that there is power in no, and really understanding how to get to your no is your responsibility. All right. So now we've reached a point of the pod where I leave with you a milestone. Today's milestone is a quote that I came across by a gentleman named Josh Billings. And that quote reads, "Half of the troubles of life can be traced to saying yes too quickly and not saying no soon enough." Sometimes we take too long to say no because we feel that we have the sense of obligation, or we're worried about someone's opinions about us. We're scared that we're going to offend people. We want people to like us. We want to be accepted. And we don't say no, or we say yes too soon for those exact same reasons. My advice is to take your time, think about what it is that you really want to do, how you want to do it. What are you getting from making this decision? What are you getting from participating or doing whatever it is that you're being asked to do? And I think once you internalize those questions and really think about what it means to you and how it's going to affect you, you will know exactly the decisions that you need to make. And if that answer is no, be confident in that no. All right. Okay, that brings us to the end of this episode. This was a good one. I love this episode because this is something I've been like really having to work on over the years. Even now, right? I still find myself sometimes saying yes in situations that I probably should say no in, or say no in situations that I should say yes in. But it's a constant work in progress, and I want you guys to work along with me. All right, let's all work together. Okay, as you know, in this podcast, the vision and goal is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist, always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right, until next time, you guys stay blessed.